Have you ever noticed that most of your suffering doesn't come from what's happening, but from what you're thinking? It's not the present moment that overwhelms you. It's your mind, overthinking, regretting, fearing, replaying. You keep waiting for peace to arrive one day, but that day never seems to come. Here's a truth that Buddhist wisdom reveals so clearly. Peace isn't hiding somewhere in the future. It's waiting for you to stop running. The moment you stop trying to control everything, the moment you stop chasing certainty, that's when you begin to truly live. You start feeling the air on your skin again. You hear the rhythm of your own heartbeat. Because real life doesn't begin when everything is finally in place. It begins the moment you let go of the need to control it. Lesson 1. The present moment is the only place life actually exists. When we worry, our minds wander far from where life is actually happening. We jump into the future, imagining what could go wrong, or we dive into the past, replaying what we should have done differently. Our thoughts become mental time machines, dragging us away from now. But here's the truth. The future hasn't happened yet. The past is already gone. Neither can be touched, neither can be changed. All we ever truly have is this breath, this heartbeat, this moment. Buddhist teachings remind us again and again, freedom, peace, clarity, and joy are not found in some distant destination. They're found right here. But the more we feed our worries, the more disconnected we become. And the more we lose contact with now, the more life passes us by. It's like sitting down to a beautiful meal while thinking about tomorrow's dinner. You miss the taste, the textures, the moment. Life is no different. If your mind is always in what might happen, or what already happened, you miss the life unfolding now. Every time you spiral into what if or what was, you're not living. You're just thinking. Imagine standing beside a flowing river. The water is gentle, the breeze is soft, the birds are singing, but your eyes are locked on your phone, scrolling through old messages, worrying about what's next. The river still flows, the trees still sway. But you're not really there. That's what worry does. It steals the moment from you. But here's the beauty. The moment you become aware of this, you can return. You don't need to force it. Just notice. Notice your breath. Feel the ground beneath you. Hear the sounds around you. You don't need to solve every problem or fix every mistake to feel peace. You just need to return to this moment. Because in this moment, your fears are quiet. In this moment, your regrets are not active. In this moment, you are simply here. And when your mind stops chasing and your heart begins to soften, something beautiful unfolds. A quiet joy arises, not because life is perfect, but because you're no longer lost in everything that isn't. That's the miracle of the present moment. It's the only place where life truly exists. The present moment. And once you learn how to return to it, again and again, you begin to realize something powerful. Peace was never far away. You had access to it all along. You were just too lost in worry to feel it. Lesson 2. Worry is the mind's way of trying to control the uncontrollable. At its core, worry is born from the mind's need to feel in control. When life becomes uncertain, when your health, relationships, or future feel shaky, the mind panics. It starts spinning stories. If I think hard enough, maybe I can prevent something bad from happening. This is how worry begins, not from actual danger, but from a craving for control in a world that's constantly shifting. But here's the truth. Most of life is beyond our control. You can't predict how others will act. You can't foresee every outcome. No matter how long you worry, you cannot guarantee safety, success, or certainty. And that's the painful irony. While we believe worry is keeping us safe, it's actually draining us, trapping us in cycles of anxiety and fear, without giving us any real power at all. From a Buddhist perspective, this desire to control stems from attachment, our emotional investment in how things should turn out. We cling to specific outcomes, and when life moves in a different direction, as it always does, we resist. That resistance is what causes suffering. We think we're protecting ourselves, but in truth we're just exhausting ourselves, cutting ourselves off from the natural flow of life. Buddhist wisdom teaches, freedom doesn't come from forcing the river to flow your way. It comes from learning how to float. When you accept that life will unfold as it's meant to, when you understand that your role is to act with care, not to control the entire universe, you begin to release the tension that worry builds. You stop living in a world of imagined fears and return to the grounded truth of the present moment. Imagine you have an important decision ahead of you. You don't know how it'll turn out, and your mind fills with anxious questions. What if I fail? What if I make the wrong choice? What if everything goes wrong? It feels like thinking harder will help, but it won't. These thoughts only drain your energy and cloud your clarity. Now imagine this instead. You take a deep breath. You make the wisest choice you can in this moment, and then you let go. You trust life to unfold. That's not weakness. That's wisdom. That's strength. To worry is like trying to fight the ocean waves. You splash, you struggle, you tire yourself out. But the waves don't stop coming. To let go is to float. Not because the sea has calmed, but because you have. Worry arises when we try to control what was never ours to control. Peace begins the moment we stop trying. When we choose to trust, not in a perfect outcome, but in our ability to meet whatever comes with calm, clarity, and compassion. The goal isn't to eliminate uncertainty. The goal is to become the kind of person who no longer fears it. Lesson 3. Everything you fear is temporary by nature. Everything in life arises, stays for a while, and then fades away. But when you're in the grip of anxiety or fear, it doesn't feel that way. In those moments, the discomfort feels endless. The fear seems permanent. The problem appears too heavy, too complex, too much to bear. That's the illusion the mind creates. It tells you that this moment, this pain, this uncertainty will last forever. But it won't. The truth is, everything you're worried about is already in motion. Change is happening, even when you can't see it. Even when the surface looks still, life is shifting beneath it. Just as a river never holds the same water twice, no feeling, no situation, no thought ever remains the same. What overwhelms you today may feel lighter tomorrow. What breaks you now might become the very thing that teaches you grace, empathy, or strength later on. Buddhism calls this truth anicca, impermanence. Nothing is fixed. Nothing stays the same. Everything is in a constant state of arising and passing away. This isn't just a spiritual concept. It's a deeply practical truth. Think about your own life, the heartbreaks that once consumed you, the doubts that once kept you awake at night, the decisions you agonized over. Where are they now? Some have healed, some have faded, some have become stories you barely remember. And just like those, whatever you're worried about today, it will pass too. But here's the mistake we often make. We treat temporary discomfort as if it's permanent pain. We allow a fleeting emotion to define our identity. We say, "I'll never feel better," even though we always do. eventually. The mind exaggerates the size and duration of pain. It forgets that time is always moving, and that healing is always quietly happening beneath the surface. The rain never lasts forever. The night always gives way to dawn. Even the fiercest storm finds stillness eventually, and so will you. Worry begins to loosen its grip when you see it clearly, not as a life sentence, but as a passing visitor. It comes, it stays, and it leaves. You don't need to fight it. You don't need to panic when it arrives. You simply breathe, observe, wait. Like a calm monk watching the wind move through the trees, you stay rooted and grounded in stillness, trusting the flow of time, knowing that this moment is just one page in a much larger story. You don't have to solve everything today. You don't need all the answers right now. You only need to remember this. This, too, shall pass. Not because you forced it to, but because that is the nature of all things. Worry fades when you trust impermanence. Fear softens when you realize your darkest thoughts are not who you are. They're simply clouds drifting across the sky of your awareness. You are not your fear. You are not your worry. You are the sky. And no matter how long the storm rages, the sky remains, vast, open, untouched. That is your true nature. And when you live from that space, the space of awareness, you no longer fear the weather of the mind. You simply wait. Because the weather always changes, it always does. Lesson 4. The more you resist worry, the stronger it becomes. There's a quiet truth about suffering that most people never discover. Whatever you resist persists. The more you try to fight, suppress, or fix your feelings, the more energy you give them. And this is especially true when it comes to worry. When you tell yourself, I shouldn't feel this way, or I need to stop worrying right now, you aren't soothing your mind. You're starting a war inside it. Your inner world becomes a battleground where you fight thoughts with thoughts, fear with force, anxiety with aggression. But Buddhism teaches something radically different. True peace cannot grow in the soil of resistance. The mind is like water. When left undisturbed, it becomes calm, clear. But when you stir it with judgment, with self-criticism, with resistance, it becomes muddy, chaotic, confused. Most of us are conditioned to escape discomfort. We bury our worry under distractions, busyness, noise, endless activity. But this doesn't heal the worry. It hides it. And what we hide doesn't disappear. It waits. It grows. You can't outrun your own mind. You can't silence anxiety by pretending it doesn't exist. You can't heal by denying what hurts. What you resist doesn't go away. It lingers, and the more you run, the more exhausted you become. The Buddhist path offers another way. You don't fight the fear. You observe it. You don't reject the worry. You sit beside it. Imagine watching a storm through your window. You don't yell at the thunder. You don't beg the rain to stop. You simply watch, knowing it will pass. And it always does. This is how we're meant to relate to the storms within us. In Buddhist meditation, there's a practice called mindful awareness. The art of watching your thoughts and emotions without clinging to them and without pushing them away. You don't label the thought as bad. You don't force it to be positive. You simply breathe and watch it arise and fall. Just like a breeze, just like a cloud crossing the sky, just like a shadow moving across the floor. And something remarkable happens. The thought loses its weight. The feeling begins to soften. You begin to see your worry was never as permanent or as powerful as it seemed. It was simply asking to be noticed. Often worry isn't a monster to destroy. It's a message to hear. Sometimes your mind worries because it wants to protect you, even if it doesn't know how. It remembers pain. It remembers fear. And it says, be careful. But when you treat your mind like the enemy, you create inner conflict. When you approach it with kindness, curiosity, and compassion, you create space. And in that space, the worry begins to soften. Letting go of resistance doesn't mean drowning in your feelings. It means you stop feeding them with fear. You stop arguing. You stop believing every thought defines who you are. Instead, you create a new relationship with your mind. One where you listen without immediately reacting. One where you observe with maturity, rather than judge with fear. This is what emotional maturity looks like. This is what true inner freedom feels like. So the next time a wave of anxiety rises, don't run, don't fight, don't panic. Just gently say to yourself, I see you. You're allowed to be here. But you don't control me. You too will pass. This is a moment of worry. You whisper to yourself, I don't need to fight it. I only need to feel it. You breathe, slowly, gently, not to fix the moment, but to be present with it. Because when you stop resisting what is, you return to what's real. The breath, the body, the stillness beneath the noise. The path to peace isn't found by conquering fear. It's found by no longer fearing it. When you stop turning fear into the enemy, you stop giving it something to fight against. It's like clutching a burning rope. The tighter you grip, the more it burns. But the moment you let go, not in defeat, but in wisdom, the pain begins to ease. Worry only survives in a mind trying to control what it doesn't understand. But when you trade control for awareness, resistance for trust, tension for compassion, the storm begins to quiet. Not because you forced it to stop, but because you stopped needing it to. Lesson 5. Attachment is the true root of worry. When you look deeply beneath your thoughts, beneath the fear and the endless what-ifs, you'll often find a single quiet force fueling them all. Attachment. In Buddhist teaching, attachment isn't the same as love or care. It's not connection or compassion. Attachment is the inner grip, the clinging. It's the belief that I must have this, or I won't be okay. We cling to people, to outcomes, to possessions, to versions of ourselves, believing our peace depends on keeping them exactly as they are. But this belief is what plants the seed of suffering. The Buddha taught, attachment is the root of all suffering. And when it comes to worry, this teaching rings especially true. You worry because you're attached to an outcome. I need this job to work out, or I'll fall apart. You worry because you're attached to a person. What if they leave me? What if they stop loving me? You worry because you're attached to an image of yourself. What if I fail? What if I'm no longer respected? The tighter you cling, the more your peace depends on things you cannot control, and the more fragile your inner world becomes, because deep down, you already know, everything you cling to can change. Attachment turns life's natural uncertainty into unbearable tension. It whispers, unless everything goes the way I planned, I cannot be at peace. But life doesn't work that way. Life is not a machine. It's a river, ever-changing, flowing, shifting in ways we can't fully control. And when you cling to the rocks in that river, demanding things stay the same, you suffer, you fight the current, you resist what's already moving. And in that resistance, worry grows. But here's the most beautiful realization. You can love without clinging. You can care deeply without being consumed. You can dream without becoming obsessed with the result. Buddhism doesn't teach us to stop loving life. It teaches us to love it wisely, to hold it with open hands. Imagine holding a butterfly Squeeze too tightly and you harm it. Hold too loosely and it flies away. But rest it gently on your palm and you can simply witness its beauty without trying to own it. Life is meant to be experienced in this same gentle way. Letting go of attachment doesn't mean giving up. It means shifting your identity from someone who needs specific conditions to feel okay to someone who is okay no matter the conditions. It's not about control. It's about connection without fear. Not needing things to be a certain way to feel peace, but choosing peace regardless of how things unfold. It's not love that causes suffering. It's the belief that without that love, you are nothing. It's not the goal that brings pain. It's the fear that you won't survive unless you achieve it. When you free yourself from attachment, you don't stop caring. You begin to care more wisely. You start to see people, experiences, and events as part of life's ever-changing rhythm. Trying to freeze them in place, that's what causes suffering. Trying to make them stay exactly as they are, that's what creates fear. True security doesn't come from controlling the world. It comes from cultivating an inner world that is steady, awake, and grounded. This kind of inner freedom doesn't come all at once. It's a practice. You catch yourself clinging and gently let go. You notice tension in a relationship, a desire, a fear, and you breathe into it. You soften. You choose presence over possession, trust over control. Over time, your heart learns a new way to exist, not rigid and afraid, but open, grounded, and at ease. So the next time you find yourself overwhelmed with worry, ask yourself with compassion, what am I afraid to lose? And then go even deeper. Who would I be if I let go of this fear? The answer is always the same. You would be free. Free. Not because you stopped caring, but because you stopped believing that your life depended on controlling everything you care about. And in that freedom, there is no more room for worry. There is only space for peace, space for joy, space for life to flow, just as it is. Lesson 6. Peace is a practice, not a product of perfect circumstances. One of the most common and misleading beliefs we carry is this: I'll feel peaceful once everything in my life is under control. We chase this illusion that peace will arrive when the problems are gone, when our relationships are smooth, when the bank account is full, when the future is certain, when we've finished everything on our to-do list. But this is a trap, because life never stops moving. The world never pauses. There is always something unfinished, uncertain, imperfect. If you wait for the storm to pass before learning how to be still, you may spend your entire life waiting. In Buddhist wisdom, peace is not something we find when the world becomes quiet. It is something we learn to create within ourselves, even when the world is loud. Peace is not a reward for having everything figured out. It is a discipline, a practice of grounding yourself in the middle of chaos, change, and pain. When you stop believing that peace is waiting on the other side of your problems, everything shifts. You stop giving away your power. You stop being a victim of your circumstances. You begin to live differently. Not because life is suddenly perfect, but because you've trained your heart to be still even in the storm. You become reactive. A harsh word knocks you off balance. A plan falls apart, and so do you. Your inner state becomes fragile, easily disturbed by situations, emotions, or the behavior of others. You're not anchored. You're drifting, tossed by every wave that life brings. But the peace, rooted in Buddhist wisdom, is different. It isn't fragile. It isn't conditional. It doesn't rely on everything going right. It comes from your relationship with what goes wrong. Peace asks, can you stay centered when the world trembles? Can you return to your breath when your mind spirals? Can you be kind to your own heart in the midst of fear? This is not about being perfect. It's about being present. Peace isn't a destination. It's a discipline. It's not a one-time decision. It's a choice you make again and again, especially when it's hardest. When anxiety fills your chest, you gently come back to your breath. When things don't go your way, you choose to accept rather than resist. When someone triggers your emotions, you pause instead of reacting. These quiet choices, repeated over time, reshape your entire experience of life. Think of peace like a garden. If you plant a few seeds and walk away, you'll return to find weeds. But if you return daily, tend the soil, water it with awareness, pull out the weeds of distraction and resistance, peace begins to grow. Not because the weather is perfect, but because you are consistent. The garden flourishes not by luck, but through care. And so does your mind. There will be days when peace feels far away, and that's okay. Buddhism does not ask us to be calm all the time. It asks us to be compassionate with ourselves, with our messy emotions, with our very real human struggles. You don't need to be peaceful every minute to walk a peaceful path. You only need to remember your way back when you forget. When you treat peace as a practice, you stop chasing it. You stop saying, I'll be calm when, and start saying, I can choose calm now. You stop searching for the perfect moment and realize the only moment you ever truly have is this one. And in this moment, if you breathe, if you soften, if you pay attention, peace will meet you right where you are. It's in the quiet sip of tea. It's in the warmth of sunlight on your skin. It's in the space between your thoughts. It's in the simple act of accepting what is. Peace isn't waiting at the end of a checklist. It isn't waiting for your life to be simple or your mind to be silent. It is here, always here, waiting to be chosen. And the more you choose it, not perfectly, but patiently, the more it becomes your natural state. Worry will still visit, but it will no longer stay. Fear may arise, but it will no longer rule you. You'll begin to understand the most profound truth. Peace was never something you had to find. It was something you were always meant to return to. A part of you, quiet and constant, just waiting for you to remember. Lesson 7. You are not your worries. You are the one who observes them. Perhaps the most life-changing truth in Buddhist teaching is this. You are not your thoughts. You are not your fears. You are not your worries. You are the awareness that notices them. This insight, so simple, yet so profound, has the power to transform your entire inner world. Because the moment you realize you are not the voice in your head, but the presence that hears it, you reclaim a deep and lasting freedom. Most people live fully identified with the mind. They believe every worry it generates, react to every fearful story it tells, and carry every anxious thought as if it were truth. The mind says, what if something bad happens? And they respond as if it already has. The mind whispers, you're not good enough, and they wear that thought like a weight on their chest. But this is the great misunderstanding. The mind is not your enemy, but it is not you. It is a tool, a storyteller, a survival mechanism, just like a radio, broadcasting many channels, not all of them true. The mind is like a radio, constantly broadcasting. Some messages are helpful, some are fearful, some are completely untrue. But here's the key. You are not the broadcast. You are the one who listens. In Buddhism, this is called the practice of non-identification. It means realizing that the thoughts that arise in your mind are not you. They are simply patterns, shaped by your conditioning, your upbringing, your experiences. You don't worry because you are broken. You worry because your mind has been trained, perhaps over years or even decades, to fixate on problems, anticipate danger, and protect you from discomfort. But when you become aware of this, you create distance. You begin to notice your thoughts like clouds, drifting across a vast sky, rather than getting pulled into every storm they bring. Picture it clearly. Your mind is a stage. Thoughts are the actors. Some dramatic, some anxious, some hopeful. But you are the audience. You don't need to join the drama. You don't need to fix every plot twist. You can watch the play unfold without becoming part of the story. So when worry walks onto the stage, you don't need to argue with it. You don't need to silence it. You simply observe, ah, there's worry again. And just like that, you return to presence. That space, the space between thought and reaction, between trigger and response, is where your freedom lives. In that space, you can pause, you can breathe, you can choose a different path. You no longer need to follow every thought. You no longer need to believe every story. Just because a thought feels urgent doesn't mean it's true. Just because the mind shouts, "What if?" doesn't mean you have to answer. This is where peace begins. Not from having no thoughts, but from learning to see them without being swept away. This kind of awareness isn't passive, it's powerfully awake. And the more you practice it, the more clearly you realize you are not your fear. You are not your doubt. You are not your anxiety. You are the calm beneath it all. You are the open sky, not the passing storm. You are the stillness that remains, no matter how loud the mind becomes. Of course, it won't always feel easy. When fear comes crashing in, you may forget that you are the ocean, not the wave. But with time, with mindfulness, with patience, you start to remember. And as you remember, worry loses its grip. You stop reacting. You stop panicking. You begin to observe. And in that observing, you find your freedom. Now, it's important to understand. This isn't about becoming numb. It's not about shutting down. In fact, it's the opposite. You feel deeply, but you no longer sink. You move through emotions, but you're not controlled by them. You still care, but you don't collapse under the weight of every thought. Because you've remembered something essential. You are not what your mind contains. You are the space that holds it all. And that space, your true self, is always calm, always clear, always untouched by the noise. So the next time your mind spins with worry, pause. Place your hand gently over your heart and say to yourself with kindness, "This is only a thought. I am the one who observes. I am not my fear." And notice what happens. Feel the space open up inside you. That space is who you really are. And now you understand. Worry isn't something life forces on you. It's something your mind creates in an attempt to feel safe, certain, and in control. But control is an illusion, and fear is a habit. One that grows the more you feed it. Real life. The kind that is steady, peaceful, and full of presence. Doesn't begin when everything is solved. It begins the moment you stop trying to solve everything. It begins the moment you return to the awareness that was always there. Quiet, grounded, free. It all begins with a breath, a gentle return to your body, a quiet moment of presence. The Buddha didn't teach us to escape life. He taught us to awaken within it. He showed us that peace isn't found in a perfect world, but in a trained mind. That the end of suffering doesn't come from fixing everything around us, but from transforming the way we relate to what's within us. When you stop worrying, You don't become careless. You become clear. You begin to live with intention, not fear. You respond to life rather than react to it. You learn to flow instead of force. You come to realize the present moment is not just a place you visit. It's your true home. You understand that you don't need to control everything to feel peace. That what you fear is already fading. That fighting your thoughts only feeds them. That holding on creates pain. And letting go brings freedom. You begin to see that calm is not something you wait for. It's something you practice, and you are never your worry. You are always the awareness behind it, patiently waiting for your return. So stop waiting for the perfect moment to start living. This moment, this breath, this is your way back. Each time your mind pulls you into fear, gently return, again and again, not with frustration, but with kindness, not with force, but with ease, because every return is a quiet triumph. Every pause, a step closer to your freedom. Every breath, a chance to begin again. And when you live this way, not trying to fix every detail, but learning to stay present with it all, worry no longer runs your life. Stillness does. Clarity does. Wisdom does. This is the path. This is the practice. And this is where true life begins.